I want you to just imagine a scenario for a second.
Okay, I'm with you.
Picture a single person sitting in their bedroom.
Right.
They've got a laptop, a decent internet connection, and that is really about it.
So a pretty standard setup for anyone working from home these days.
Exactly. Just a totally normal, everyday setup. Now, I want you to imagine that this one person, completely alone, manages to completely paralyze the intelligence apparatus of an entire sovereign government.
Whoa. Okay, that escalated quickly.
Right. And not just that, while they're at it, they also manage to completely bankrupt the credibility of a multi-thousand-dollar corporate cybersecurity firm
Just from their bedroom.
just from the bedroom. And here's the absolute kicker. They do all of this without breaking a single law.
That is, I mean, that sounds impossible.
It really does. He doesn't use any malware. He doesn't hack anything. He just uses math.
It honestly sounds like the plot of some geopolitical cyber thriller you'd watch on a streaming service.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we're so conditioned, we expect these massive cyber events to involve teams of mercenaries or like huge nation state backing.
Right. Guys in dark hoodies in a massive bunker somewhere.
Exactly, with supercomputers and billion-dollar budgets. But the reality of what is unfolding right now in Uruguay is literally just one guy,
Yep.
armed with public data, forensic architecture, and just this absolute refusal to blink.
So to understand how a 19-year-old kid, a private threat intelligence corporation, and a sovereign government all ended up in this digital Mexican standoff, we have to look at the one thing that broke the government's models.
The anomaly.
Right, the anomaly. We were talking about a man named Alberto Hill. He's an independent Uruguayan cybersecurity researcher.
And it is so important to note that while the geography of the story is localized to South America, the implications are massively global.
Huge, global scale.
Because what we are looking at here is a true black swan event in cybersecurity.
And that is exactly what the mission of this deep dive is today. We are going to explore the mathematical odds of a standoff like this even taking place.
Which are staggeringly low, by the way.
Oh, basically zero. We'll get into that.
Yep.
But we're also going to look at how the laws of game theory are being completely dismantled by one man's past trauma and what this actually means for you, the listener, and the global future of how governments handle digital truth.
And we should probably set some ground rules for how we're analyzing this, right?
Yes, definitely.
We are going to do this without relying on hearsay or, random internet rumors. Our sources for this deep dive are purely forensic dossiers, behavioral models, and rigorous mathematical proofs.
Because honestly, that is the only way to truly comprehend the sheer scale of the information asymmetry happening here.
Yeah.
It's all math.
It has to be math, or it just sounds like a conspiracy theory.
Exactly. So I want to start by looking at those odds because you mentioned this is a black swan event. In the rigid, hyper-predictable world of cybersecurity, I always just assumed everyone essentially played by the same rules.
You'd think so.
Like people want money or they want power, right? That's what drives the world. So what makes Alberto Hill a statistical anomaly?
To grasp the magnitude of the anomaly here, we really have to look at the standard game theory of the cybersecurity industry.
Okay, lay it out for me.
It is a highly, highly predictable ecosystem. It's driven by very clear incentives. Let's say an average, highly skilled professional uncovers a massive institutional vulnerability.
Like a huge flaw in a government database or something.
Exactly. Or, even more dangerously, they uncover fabricated threat intelligence.
Oh, wow.
Meaning, they find out a corporation or a government is actively lying about a cyber attack to cover up their own incompetence.
So they stumble onto a massive cover-up. That puts the professional in a really dangerous position, doesn't it?
Extremely dangerous.
Mhm.
They are holding highly radioactive information. And according to all standard predictive models, that professional will predictably choose one of three paths.
Okay, what's path number one?
Path number one is they monetize it.
Follow the money.
Always.
Yeah.
They take that intelligence, they sell it to a corporate firm, or they quietly claim a massive financial bounty from the vendor.
Like a bug bounty program.
Right. They get rich, they sign a strict non-disclosure agreement, and they stay very, very quiet.
Which is the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
And, the one that pays the mortgage.
Exactly. So path number two, they report it.
To who?
They hand the intelligence over to law enforcement or a friendly state intelligence agency.
Oh, I see. So they play the hero.
Right. This completely eliminates their personal legal liability, and they get to claim public clout as the good guy who helped the authorities. It is a huge career builder.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Which leaves the third option for those who just don't want to get involved at all.
Right. Path 3 is just to ignore it.
Just walk away.
They realize the political or physical stakes are simply way too high. They fear state retaliation or being targeted by the digital underground, so they just step away.
Turn off the computer and pretend they saw nothing.
Exactly. They delete the files and protect themselves, so you've got monetize, report, or ignore. That is the entire behavioral playbook for like 99.9% of the industry.
But Alberto Hill doesn't take any of those paths, does he?
Not a single one.
Because he doesn't ask for a buyout, and he obviously doesn't hand it over to the cops, partly because, well, the cops are the ones buying the fabricated intelligence in this case.
Right. Going to them would be a terrible idea.
And he just flat out refuses to walk away.
His behavioral profile completely defies standard predictive game theory. Like, if we look at the probability funnel from the sources, the math of someone like him existing in this specific scenario is just staggering.
Walk me through the numbers.
Okay, you start with an estimated base population of about 3 million global cybersecurity professionals.
Which is a massive talent pool.
Mhm.
But I assume most of them are doing, like, routine IT security, right? Setting up firewalls and stuff.
Yeah, configuring firewalls, managing basic compliance. So you filter that 3 million down to the 5% who actually have the high-tier forensic architecture skills necessary to deconstruct a sovereign-level breach.
The real elite line.
Right, these are the people who can actually read assembly code, they understand deep memory forensics, and they can trace advanced persistent threats.
So if my math is right, that filters us down to about, what, 150,000 people in the world?
Give or take, yeah. But then you have to apply the final, most crucial filter.
Okay.
You narrow that 150,000 down to the 0.05% of those elite professionals who possess a total uncompromising disillusionment with the state apparatus. People whose incentive structure is so radically altered that they literally cannot be bought, coerced, or intimidated by government power.
So when you run all those filters together,
the probability of this exact convergence of traits happening in the right place at the right time with the right technical target drops to near zero.
wait, hold on. I get the math. It's a tiny fraction of a fraction. But what actually creates that 0.05%?
What do you mean?
Because human beings are wired for self-preservation, right? When I look at those odds, I have to ask, why is Alberto so completely immune to the standard incentives?
That's the million-dollar question.
Why doesn't the threat of prison or the promise of a massive paycheck work on him like it would on anyone else?
The answer lies in a psychological baseline that the forensic dossiers actually classify as radical post-traumatic growth.
Radical post-traumatic growth. Okay.
To understand it, we have to look back a decade to 2014.
Oh.
Alberto Hill actually became the first ethical hacker in Uruguay to be wrongfully sent to a maximum security prison.
Wait, really? A maximum security prison?
Yes, due to a catastrophic judicial and investigative error.
So we aren't talking about, like, some cushy white-collar minimum security place here.
Not at all. We are talking about Durazno. It is a freezing, brutal, maximum security facility.
Oh my gosh.
He was thrown into a cell because the state fundamentally misunderstood the nature of ethical hacking. They literally criminalized his technical expertise.
That is terrifying.
And while he was inside, he endured severe psychological manipulation. He survived documented medical neglect.
Just awful.
He was thrust into a system that actively, day in and day out, tried to break him.
But he eventually cleared his name, didn't he? I feel like I've heard this story before.
He probably have. His case was actually chronicled in a massive international story. It was on Darknet Diaries, episode 25.
Oh, right. Yes.
It was huge. It forced actual, tangible changes in Latin American justice systems.
So he did clear his name, but I have to imagine an experience like that just fundamentally rewires how you see the world.
Completely rewires it. Because of that extreme trauma, his incentive structure is now entirely decoupled from financial greed or state alignment.
The normal rules just don't apply to him anymore.
Exactly. He operates on a strict, uncompromising, hack-not-crime ethos. The system already did its absolute worst to him.
Right.
They took his freedom, his health, and his reputation, and he beat them anyway.
I think of standard cybersecurity, kind of like a casino, you know?
House?
Well, everyone who walks through the doors eventually plays by the house rules.
Oh, for sure.
Either you play for the corporate money or you play for the state's power. But what happens when a player sits at the table who has already survived the house, taking him to the back alley, and beating him within an inch of his life.
Right.
He genuinely doesn't care about the chips on the table. His only goal is to mathematically prove to the entire room that the game is rigged.
And when that happens, the house panics.
I bet they do.
Because all of their standard operating procedures, everything they do, relies on leverage.
Leverage, yeah.
They rely on the assumption that you want to keep your job, or you want a government contract, or you are terrified of going to jail.
They need you to be afraid of something.
Exactly. They just don't know how to handle an entity that doesn't want what they are selling and doesn't fear what they are threatening.
Which brings us to the current crisis in Uruguay.
Yes.
If Alberto's immunity to standard incentives makes him this black swan, how is he applying this unique power today?
Well,
Because we aren't just talking about abstract game theory here, right? There is a real teenager sitting in a cell, a massive corporate contract, and a government scrambling to control a narrative.
right. So the current crisis really originates from Uruguay's rapid digital transformation.
Okay, set the scene for us.
Over the last few years, the government has been rolling out this ambitious digital infrastructure. Most notably, they have a system called the TUID Digital Identity Platform.
TUID got it.
It's designed to centralize citizen data, basically allowing people to interact with state services digitally.
Which, sounds great on paper. Modernizing the state, making things easier for citizens.
It does sound great. But the problem, and this is incredibly common globally, not just in Uruguay, is that the speed of their digital rollout massively outpaced their security maturity.
They built it fast but didn't build it safe.
Exactly. They accumulated massive technical debt, the infrastructure had deep vulnerabilities, and inevitably a series of high-profile cyber incidents hit Uruguayan government entities.
So they got hacked.
Big time. Data was exposed, systems were breached, and the state was just publicly humiliated.
There was bleeding credibility. They needed a win.
They desperately needed a win.
They needed to show the public that they have the situation under control, and they needed to do it fast.
Enter a 19-year-old named Juan Manuel Lage.
Okay.
He went by the online alias Uruguayo 337. The state arrested this teenager, threw him into a maximum security prison, and immediately paraded him through the media as an elite, sovereign-level cybercrime mastermind.
19-year-old mastermind.
They painted this kid as the singular architect of this massive national security failure.
But the state didn't just invent this narrative completely out of thin air, did they? Like, they had to have some sort of intelligence pointing them toward this specific kid.
They did, and this is where we introduced the corporate element of our standoff.
Okay, who's the corporation?
The intelligence came from a company called BCA Ltd., which is run by a figure named Mauro Eldritch.
BCA Ltd. And Mauro Eldritch.
Right. BCA Ltd. is a UK-registered corporate threat intelligence firm. They provided the foundational intelligence, and I use that word loosely, that fueled the state's entire mastermind narrative.
And let me guess, they didn't provide this intelligence as a public service out of the goodness of their hearts.
Far from it. BCA Ltd. operates a platform called Sheriff.
Sure, okay.
And they sell subscriptions to their threat intelligence for $29,000 a year.
29 grand a year. That's a hefty subscription.
It is. And it is crucial to understand the economic incentives here. In the enterprise software world, if you don't demonstrate constant value...
They weren't finding threats?
Right. If you aren't showing your clients that you are catching massive, terrifying threats on a regular basis, those clients cancel their subscriptions.
So they have an overwhelming financial incentive to find monsters under the bed, even if they have to make them up.
It is a concept known in the intelligence community as threat intelligence weaponization.
Threat intelligence weaponization. That sounds intense.
Their entire business model relies on a fear-based marketing setup. By inflating the threat, or, as the forensic dossier strongly suggests in this case, actively manufacturing evidence.
Manufacturing evidence.
Yes. By doing that, they create a state of panic. Panic drives urgency, and urgency is what sells those $29,000 enterprise software licenses.
Let me just put myself in the shoes of the listener here for a second.
Sure.
It's one thing to say a company exaggerated a threat to sell some software. That happens all the time in marketing.
Right, normal corporate spin.
But it's a completely different thing to say they fabricated evidence to throw a teenager into a maximum security cell.
It's incredibly dark.
So Alberto is sitting in his bedroom, analyzing the fallout of this whole mess. He decides to look at the actual forensic data that BCA Ltd. Handed to the state. What exactly did he find?
He found that the official narrative violates the fundamental laws of computational physics.
Wait, computational physics, what does that mean?
Alberto looked at the supposed elite attack vector that BCA Ltd claimed was the absolute smoking gun, proving this teenager was a mastermind.
Okay, the smoking
The
gun.
grand piece of evidence provided by this massive corporation was a 39.6 kilobyte SQL stub.
Wait, hold on. A 39.6 kilobyte file.
Yes.
Let me put that in perspective for you. A single blank Word document on your desktop is larger than that.
Considerably larger, yes.
A low-resolution photo you take on an old flip phone is probably 10 times larger than that.
Easily.
You're telling me a professional cybersecurity firm used a file smaller than a blank piece of paper to convince a government that a teenager breached a sovereign identity platform.
It is practically microscopic. A SQL stub of that size is just a tiny fragmented piece of database code.
It's nothing.
It proves absolutely nothing about an advanced persistent threat. It doesn't show lateral movement through a network. It doesn't show privilege escalation. It doesn't show any command and control infrastructure.
So it's completely useless as evidence.
It is the digital equivalent of finding a single generic screw on the sidewalk and claiming it proves a specific teenager built a nuclear submarine in his backyard.
That is just absurd. Did the kid even have the technical background to pull something like this off, assuming the evidence was actually real?
Alberto investigated the technical profile of Juan Manuel Lage and found that the 19-year-old lacked even the most basic Python programming skills.
Are you serious? He couldn't even code.
He couldn't write fundamental code, let alone architect a multi-tiered encrypted breach of a sovereign infrastructure system. The capability mass simply did not exist.
Okay, I have to ask the obvious question here then. If the evidence is this unbelievably flimsy, a 39 kilobyte file, and a kid who literally can't code, why on earth did the Uruguayan government buy it?
It's a great question.
Aren't there internal technical experts in the government who would look at this report and just laugh him out of the room?
This is where we run into a systemic failure known as the protocol of silence.
The protocol of silence. Okay, explain that.
The state isn't necessarily cartoonishly evil in this scenario. They are trapped by bureaucratic self-preservation.
Ah, covering their own tracks.
Exactly. The government faces massive, potentially career-ending political costs if they admit genuine technical failures in their own infrastructure.
Because if they admit the TUID platform was built with glaring security holes, politicians lose elections.
Yep.
Agency directors get fired. It's a bloodbath for them.
Precisely. The institutional tendency is almost always to choose a convenient, politically expedient lie over a humiliating structural truth.
So they wanted a scapegoat.
So when a private firm with a slick, polished presentation hands them a teenager and says, here is your evil mastermind, your infrastructure is perfectly fine, it was just this one rogue genius's op.
The state eats it up.
They are heavily incentivized to accept it without rigorous auditing. It allows them to quickly close the case, look victorious to the public, and avoid answering for their own systemic negligence.
It's like a town hiring a firefighter who secretly moonlights as an arsonist, right?
That's a great way to look at it.
The firefighter points at a kid holding a matchbox on the sidewalk, claims that kid is a master criminal who burned down the entire bank, and then hands the mayor a $29,000 bill for a fire extinguisher.
Yep.
And the mayor happily pays it because if he admits the bank was actually built entirely out of dry newspaper and gasoline, he'll get run out of town.
That analogy captures the incentive structure perfectly. The mayor, or the state in this case, completely sacrifices the kid's due process just to save their own public relations.
It makes my blood boil, honestly.
And if it weren't for Alberto Hill, that would just be the end of the story.
The bad guys win.
The teenager rots in a cell, the corporation cashes the check, and the state pats itself on the back.
But Alberto steps in.
He does.
And he doesn't just go on Twitter and complain about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
The dossiers describe him building an algorithmic shield.
An algorithmic shield, yes.
He uses pure weaponized mathematics to dismantle the narrative. But how does one guy actually do that against a state apparatus? Like, practically speaking.
He essentially transitioned from being just a researcher to operating as an apex counterintelligence asset.
Okay, big words. Break that down.
He realized he couldn't just argue with the state politically. If it's his word against theirs, he loses. He had to mathematically trap them.
Okay.
To do this, he leaned heavily on advanced cyber threat intelligence frameworks, specifically epistemological models like Dempster-Shafer theory.
Okay, Dempster-Shafer theory. Listen, if you start talking about Bayesian probability and complex algorithms, I'm going to get lost. And I know you, the listener, will too.
Fair enough, I can simplify it.
How does Dempster-Shafer work in plain English?
Let's step away from the math for a
That's an
second.
idea.
Imagine you are a detective trying to solve a murder in a mansion.
Classic clue scenario. I like it.
You have two suspects, the butler and the gardener. In traditional statistical probability, if you have absolutely no evidence, the math often forces you to assign a guess.
Like a 50-50 split.
Right, say a 50-50 split of probability between the two suspects just to make the numbers add up to 100%.
Right. You have to allocate the probability somewhere. You can't just have missing numbers.
But Dempster-Schaefer theory is entirely different. It is a mathematical framework for modeling ignorance.
Modeling ignorance.
It allows you to say, I have zero evidence about the gardener, so instead of guessing 50%, I assign my belief to the state of ignorance itself.
Oh, that's fascinating.
It doesn't force a guess. It calculates what are called belief intervals, establishing the absolute upper and lower bounds of what is mathematically possible based only on proven evidence.
So instead of guessing who did it, it strictly proves what you cannot know or what is fundamentally impossible.
Exactly. So Alberto applied Dempster-Schaefer to the technical evidence against the required capability to breach the TUID platform.
Okay, let's see how he used it.
He inputted the 39.6 KB database stub, that's piece of evidence one. He inputted the teenager's proven inability to write basic Python, evidence two.
Right.
When you run the model with those inputs, it creates a belief interval that mathematically isolates the teenager as a low-level peripheral actor at absolute best.
Because he simply doesn't have the skills or the tools.
It proves, with scientific certainty, that his capability mass is near zero.
So he didn't just write a blog post saying, hey guys, I think the kid is innocent.
No.
He literally proved that the kid being the mastermind violates the laws of physics in a digital space.
That's exactly what he did. And he didn't stop with just the state's narrative. He then turned his focus to the corporation, BCA Ltd.
They were next on his list.
He applied Markov chain temporal analysis to completely dismantle their threat intelligence timeline.
Okay, we definitely need to break down the Markov chain too. Give me another physical world analogy to help us out.
Sure. A Markov chain models the probability of transitioning from one state to another over time. Think of it like analyzing a bank robbery. There is a logical, linear timeline that has to happen. State 1, the robbers break the vault.
Makes sense.
State 2, they load the money into bags. State 3, the alarms go off. State 4, the police arrive and investigate the scene. State 5, the police hold a press conference.
Right. It has to happen in that exact order. The police can't possibly hold a press conference about the exact amount of money stolen before the robbers have even broken into the vault.
Precisely. It breaks the laws of time. In cybersecurity, it's the exact same logic. State 1 is the breach.
Okay.
State 2 is dwell time, or the attacker hides in the system. State 3 is discovery. State 4 is forensic analysis. State 5 is the public alert.
So there's a necessary sequence of events.
It takes time to find a hack, reverse engineer the complex malware, and figure out what actually happened. But when Alberto ran the temporal analysis on BCA Ltd's threat alerts, he found a glaring mathematical impossibility.
Oh man, what do they do?
BCA Ltd was issuing commercial alerts and aggressively promoting their paid sheriff platform on the back of them with a latency approaching zero.
Approaching zero.
They were jumping from State 1, the supposed breach, directly to State 5, the public alert, completely bypassing the analysis phase altogether.
They skipped straight to the end.
They were issuing detailed threat profiles before any independent forensic consensus was even physically possible to achieve.
So going back to your analogy, they were literally holding the press conference before the vault was even broken.
Mathematically, transitioning from a breach directly to a public alert in under 60 minutes based on a fabricated 39 kilobyte stub is a statistical impossibility for a legitimate third-party observer.
It's impossible.
The Markov model flagged BCA Ltd with a greater than 98% probability of state injection.
State injection, meaning they didn't actually discover the threat narrative.
Yeah, they didn't discover it.
They injected it. They literally manufactured the crisis so they could turn around and sell the solution.
That's what the math shows.
And Alberto has all of this mathematically proven in these dossiers. But wait, this brings up a huge logistical question for me.
What's that?
The dossiers mentioned that Alberto proved the government was monitoring him while he was doing all this.
Yeah.
If he's just a guy sitting in his bedroom, how does he know the intelligence apparatus is watching his moves? What is the actual mechanism there?
That's one of the most brilliant parts of his strategy. He used a classic counterintelligence technique known as honey tokens.
Honey tokens. Sounds sticky.
Very sticky. When Alberto compiled his flawless mathematical proofs, the Dempster-Schaefer models, the Markov chains. He
Wow.
packaged them into these highly detailed forensic PDF dossiers.
Okay, so he's got his reports ready.
But he didn't just upload them blindly to the internet and hope people read them. He embedded tracking pixels and unique, individualized URLs directly into the documents.
Oh, like when marketers track if you open an email newsletter,
Yeah.
they know the second you click it.
Similar concept, yes, but weaponized for counterintelligence. He seeded these specific PDFs into channels he knew for a fact state actors monitored.
Smart. When someone opened the PDF, the honey token triggered a silent request back to a server Alberto personally controlled.
So he was watching them watch him.
Exactly. By analyzing his own server logs, Alberto could capture the exact IP addresses, the timestamps, and the user agent strings of the people reading his research.
And he matched the IP addresses back to the government.
He mapped the IP blocks directly to AGSIC, Uruguay's official cyber agency, and other internal state ministries.
He caught them red-handed.
He had the receipts. And this is the core of his overall strategy: information asymmetry.
How does information asymmetry play out here?
Well, typically, the state holds all the information, and the citizen holds none.
Right, they have all the classified files.
But Alberto completely slipped the board. He gathered all the offensive intelligence, the true vectors of the Tuat breach, the actual physics of how the sovereign systems failed, the IP logs of the state watching him, and he hoarded it.
He kept it to himself.
He deliberately chose not to publish the state's vulnerabilities or act as some unpaid consultant to fix their mess. Let me guess why. Because if he gave them the answers to their security flaws, they would just quietly patch the servers, declare a victory for their own internal teams, and keep the teenager in jail to save face.
That is exactly what they would do. They'd use his work to cover their tracks, so instead, he selectively published only the mathematically flawless defensive data.
Just the defensive side.
He published the proofs of the teenager's innocence and the corporation's deception. He created this psychological state where he knows the truth, the state knows he knows the truth, but he absolutely refuses to give them the easy way out.
Wow. The dossiers call this the reverse panopticon, right?
Yes, the reverse panopticon.
Usually the panopticon is the idea of a central guard tower in a prison. The state watches the citizens, and because the citizens never know exactly when they're being watched, they behave out of fear. It's a classic control mechanism.
But by publicly proving that AGSIC was actively downloading and reading his honey token PDFs, Alberto reversed it.
The guard tower is suddenly looking at itself.
He isn't the one behaving out of fear. He trapped the state in their own observation cycle.
I picture it kind of like a video game.
Okay, let's hear it.
The state is used to playing on a private server where they can just hack the code to win, arrest whoever they want, hide all the server logs.
Right, they own the game.
But Alberto has dragged them onto a public server where every single keystroke is live streamed to the entire world, and the anti-cheat software is just cranked to maximum.
I love that analogy.
They are completely paralyzed because any move they make based on his data is a public admission that a guy in a bedroom is smarter than their entire national intelligence apparatus.
The famous military strategist John Boyd called this paralyzing the ODA loop: observe, orient, decide, act.
Right, the ODA loop.
Alberto has them permanently trapped in the observe phase. They can't decide and they can't act. And we saw exactly what happens when the corporate side of this equation tries to break out of that paralysis. BCA Ltd. completely panicked.
What did they do?
Moreau Eldridge's firm attempted to use fraudulent Cloudflare copyright claims to censor Alberto's forensic PDFs.
You've got to be kidding me. A copyright claim on a math proof,
They literally filed strikes to get his math scrubbed from the internet.
which is the absolute fastest way to trigger the mother of all Streisand effects.
It was a catastrophic miscalculation on their part. For you listening, if you aren't familiar, the Streisand effect is when an attempt to hide or censor information has the unintended consequence of massively amplifying it.
Right, like telling people not to look at something just makes everyone look at it.
By filing a bogus copyright claim against a dry, technical forensic document, BCA Ltd. proved Alberto's point to the entire global cybersecurity community.
Because why in the world would a legitimate $29,000 a year threat intelligence firm try to aggressively censor a mathematical PDF unless that document exposed a fatal existential threat to their entire business model?
It was a tacit admission of guilt. Every single attempt to suppress his findings acted as a multiplier for his credibility.
It totally backfired.
It took what was a local Uruguayan dispute and blasted it onto the radar of major international digital rights watchdogs.
So Alberto has mathematically cornered a sovereign state. He has crippled the credibility of a corporate intelligence firm. But as a listener, I have to step back and ask, how does a standoff like this actually end?
It's the ultimate
The
question.
kid is still in a maximum security cell. The state still physically holds the keys. They have the guns. They have the badges. Why doesn't the state just crush Alberto or simply ignore his math entirely?
To answer that, we really have to look at the game theory payoff matrix of this exact moment.
Let's map it out.
Alberto has engineered a flawless Mexican standoff. The interests of all three parties, Alberto, the state, and the corporate firm, are diametrically opposed. But the proof Alberto holds is absolute. Let's look at the state's options.
Okay, option one. The state decides to just ignore Alberto, push forward with their narrative, and take the 19-year-old to an open public trial.
If they take it to trial, Alberto's evidence officially enters the legal discovery process.
Oh, right. It becomes public record.
Defense attorneys will present the Dempster-Schaefer models and the Markov chains in open court. The fact that the foundational evidence is a fabricated 39.6 KLB SQL stub will become undeniable public court record.
And the press will have a field day with it.
The media will report that the state spent millions on infrastructure that was easily compromised and then tried to frame a kid who can't even write Python. It will cause catastrophic institutional humiliation.
So the payoff for the state going to trial is massively, overwhelmingly negative.
Correct. So option two.
Option two. The state decides to attack Alberto directly. They use their state power to silence him, arrest him again, or run a smear campaign to discredit him.
If they attack him, they just validate his intelligence globally.
They prove he's dangerous to them.
And remember his psychological baseline. He survived their absolute worst maximum security prison back in 2014. He's practically immune to state coercion at this point.
You can't threaten a guy who has nothing left to fear from you.
Furthermore, an attack on him now would draw the immediate ire of massive international NGOs like the Electronic Frontier Foundation or Amnesty International.
So it escalates.
It would turn a local PR embarrassment into an international human rights scandal. Again, a massively negative payoff.
Which means the state is mathematically boxed in. They can't go to trial, and they can't attack the researcher. So what is the third option? What is their exit strategy?
The only viable exit strategy for a state in this position is a concept known in intelligence and legal circles as parallel construction.
Parallel construction.
Yeah.
How does the flow of that actually work in practice? Because it doesn't sound like a dramatic courtroom victory to me.
It is the exact opposite of a cinematic victory. It happens entirely in the shadows.
No big trial scenes.
The state cannot afford the public humiliation of admitting defeat, so they will quietly ingest Alberto's metrics behind the scenes.
They'll use his data secretly.
Behind closed doors, the Ministry of the Interior will recognize that BCA Ltd and Mauro Eldritch are completely radioactive liabilities. They will quietly sever all vendor contracts with the firm.
So the corporation is silently bankrupted of its state influence, but without any public fanfare or press releases.
Correct. They just fade away. Then, concerning the teenager, police forensics will miraculously conduct a new internal review.
A sudden breakthrough in the case.
They will wait for a Friday afternoon, maybe months from now, when the news cycle is totally distracted by something else.
Classic Friday news dump.
They will issue a very quiet press release, citing procedural errors or a lack of conclusive digital evidence or a reevaluation of capability.
And they just open the cell door and let him walk?
They will quietly release Juan Manuel Lage. Or perhaps they'll reduce his charges to an absolute minimum non-custodial sentence for some minor infraction, just to say they caught him doing something.
Just to save face.
The state saves face because they avoid a public apology and they never explicitly admit they were outsmarted. BCA Ltd faces corporate ruin in the technical underground because nobody trusts their intelligence anymore.
Word travels fast in those circles.
And Alberto achieves his primary moral objective. He saves a life.
I have to admit, hearing that sounds deeply frustrating.
It really is.
We are so conditioned by movies and TV to want the dramatic ending. We want the judge bang the gavel, we want the evil corporate CEO to be put in handcuffs, and we want the hero to be carried out of the courthouse on everyone's shoulders.
Reality, especially in state-level cyber conflicts, rarely affords that kind of neat closure.
It's kind of like catching someone breaking into your house. Instead of calling the cops, having a massive shootout, and going to trial, you just quietly change all the locks while they're standing on the porch.
That's exactly what it
You
is.
just let them walk away empty-handed so they don't panic and burn the house down on their way out. It is profoundly unsatisfying on an emotional level, but strategically, it is 100% effective.
And that is the profound power of strategic silence.
Strategic silence.
By hoarding his operational knowledge and focusing 100% of his fire on the fabricated corporate evidence and the teenager's innocence, Alberto forces the massive system to bear the weight of its own deception.
He turns their own weight against them.
If he gave the state the answers to their vulnerabilities, they would patch them and take all the credit. By giving them nothing but a mirror showing their own fraud, he breaks their mechanism of control.
He didn't just find a loophole in the law. He engineered a reality where the state has literally no choice but to do the right thing, precisely because it is the only mathematical way they can save their own skin.
And while this quiet, shadowy victory might seem localized to a single teenager in Uruguay, the architecture of this standoff is a blueprint for the rest of the world.
Let's expand on that global angle,
Yeah.
because our sources really emphasize the global scale of this.
Yes, it's very important.
Why does a localized dispute in South America matter to a cybersecurity analyst sitting in London, or a policymaker in Tokyo, or just an everyday citizen in New York?
It matters deeply because what Alberto Hill has exposed is a masterclass in fighting the commercialization of fear.
The commercialization of fear.
As digital transformation outpaces security globally, and believe me, this is happening everywhere, in the United States, in Europe, in Asia, corporations everywhere are heavily incentivized to manufacture panic.
So threat intelligence weaponization isn't just a Uruguayan problem. It's a multi-billion-dollar global industry.
It is arguably the defining problem of modern cybersecurity procurement. Private companies are constantly pitching governments with terrifying narratives, hoping to secure massive defense contracts.
And governments buy it because they're terrified.
The Tuid breach and the BCA LTD fabrication is just a microcosm of a systemic global vulnerability. When sovereign states lack internal technical literacy, they outsource their paranoia to private companies.
And when those private companies realize they get paid more when the threat is bigger, they start turning 39 kilobyte database fragments into national security emergencies.
That's exactly.
It's a completely perverse incentive structure.
But Alberto has established a global precedent for what the intelligence community is starting to call bedroom intelligence.
Bedroom intelligence. I love that term.
He proves that a single unmonetized analyst working entirely outside the traditional system from a residential desktop can structurally outmaneuver a sovereign state's intelligence network and its paid corporate vendors.
He completely broke the monopoly on truth. Governments have always held the monopoly on what is considered a national security threat.
He fundamentally redefined digital sovereignty. For years, governments have claimed that digital sovereignty relies on their massive budgets, their closed systems, and their highly classified platforms.
The walls they build around their data.
But this case proves that those platforms are incredibly fragile, and the intelligence defending them can easily be bought and fabricated. True digital sovereignty doesn't come from a state's ability to hide its data. It comes from the transparency and auditability afforded by independent, expert technical review.
So where does this place someone like Alberto on the global map of power? If he isn't a state actor and he isn't a corporate vendor, what is he?
The behavioral models classify him as an apex counterintelligence asset.
An apex counterintelligence asset. That sounds like something out of a sci-fi novel.
It is an incredibly rare categorization. His power does not come from institutional wealth. It doesn't come from a government badge or a VC-funded startup.
Right.
It comes from uncompromising moral clarity, a lived experience of surviving state injustice, and the sheer ability to wield asymmetric logic.
I really want you, listening right now, to reflect on the sheer scale of this.
It's huge.
We usually think of cyber warfare as nation-states fighting nation-states, right?
Usually, yes.
We picture rooms full of military hackers in uniform launching zero-day exploits at power grids. But here, the ultimate weapon in this massive institutional conflict wasn't a piece of malware.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't a billion-dollar AI system. It was a man who survived the absolute worst punishment the system could inflict, looked at a frightened teenager being fed to the wolves, and decided to use radical transparency and flawless math as an impenetrable shield.
If the Markov chain prediction holds true and parallel construction saves this teenager, this case won't just be a neat anecdote.
What will it be?
It will be studied globally in intelligence, legal, and academic communities as a landmark blueprint. It proves that independent open source intelligence, OSINT, can act as a localized, highly lethal immune system against institutional corruption.
An immune system that triggers automatically when a corporation tries to infect a government with a fabricated narrative. Alberto Hill didn't just defend a scapegoat, he basically inoculated an entire system against a specific strain of corporate manipulation.
He proved that in the digital age, a single node of absolute truth, if wielded correctly, can halt a massive machinery of deception.
And that leaves us with a final, really provocative thought to mull over.
Let's hear it.
We are standing on the edge of an era where artificial intelligence is about to amplify everything we just talked about.
Oh, absolutely.
AI will absolutely amplify the tools of forensic truth, sure, but it will also massively, exponentially amplify the tools of corporate deception.
It's a double-edged sword.
If a company can frame a kid with a 39 kilobyte SQL stub today, imagine how easily they will fabricate a deeply convincing AI-generated server log or a terrifying deepfake threat narrative tomorrow.
It's going to be seamless.
The volume of manufactured noise is going to increase by orders of magnitude.
The commercialization of fear is about to get automated.
So if one determined individual with a laptop can mathematically dismantle a state-sponsored narrative today, what happens to the balance of power tomorrow?
That is the real question.
In a world that is rapidly drowning in manufactured narratives and AI-generated fear, perhaps the ultimate currency of the future isn't big data at all.
What is it then?
Maybe the most valuable asset a society can possess isn't a better firewall or a stronger algorithm, but the unbribable moral clarity of the people interpreting the data.
Because without that clarity, without someone willing to look at the raw math, the most advanced analytical machine is just generating really expensive shadows.
Like you break your arm, the x-ray shows the jagged white line, but you have a corporation financially incentivized to tell you it's a tumor, and a government willing to amputate the arm just to look decisive.
Right.
It takes someone willing to stand in the room, point at the screen, and mathematically prove it is just a broken bone. Until next time, keep questioning the narrative.